What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, let's do a little thing we like to call the mailbag at John Middlekauff, brought to you by my friends at Zone Pouches. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel so you never miss a thing. We're live every Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, content all throughout the week. Leave a comment, like the page, share it with your friends. Let's dive into the mailbag at John Middlekauff. At John Middlekauff is my Instagram. Easiest way to interact, really the only way. Fire in those DMs and get your questions answered here on this little old podcast. We will start with Blake. Love the show. Question for you. Can the Bears conversation slow down a little until they beat someone? They have played one team with a winning record and one team with a 500 record. Lost them both. The combined records of the teams they've beaten is 20, 51, and 1. I do think when you are talking about teams, let's say a good team, like or a team that has been good, the Lions, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs, whoever, you can really dive into the nitty-gritty on who they are beating. Right? It's like, well, they're kind of not playing great. They've only beaten the bad teams. They haven't beat the good teams because we view those like Super Bowl, the Bills, Super Bowl contenders, the Packers. It's like, how are you losing to the Browns, right? But the Bears don't enter into that conversation because I don't think anyone with the brain, including the 99% of Bears fans, go, we're winning the Super Bowl. But making the playoffs, if you are the Bears, is a really big deal. And the only way to make the playoffs is you got to win some games. So in the middle of November, what's their record? 7-3? Is that their record right now? I feel like it's better than that. Is it 8-3? The Chicago Bears are 7-3. Last year at this time, I think they were in the midst of like a 10-game losing streak. Their coach was fired on technically the day after Black Friday. But all of America witnessed Matt Eberflus blow one of the worst games you'll ever see in Detroit. I mean, it was pretty embarrassing. It was something that's going to be hard for him ever to shake. That was Chicago Bears. So when you've been bad and you're fighting, and I would put the Patriots in the same category, it's a little different because I think people actually think they could win the division. One thing with the Patriots, they really just got to beat one team. The Bears are going to have to beat the Lions and the Packers, or at least fend them off, which is going to be extremely difficult. Bears fans would be the first to tell you that, right? I mean, they played the Lions once this year. They lost like 100-0. But 7-3, you apologize to nobody, especially winning games the way they've won it. They're not a perfect team. But listen, their quarterback's a polarizing guy. He's made some huge plays down the stretch. With his legs, who cares? 7-3 is a lot better than like, hey, they look great and they're 4-5. So I guess that wouldn't even add up. 4-6. I don't think the Bears have any reason to apologize for who they've beaten. It's going to get more difficult. But even this week, as of recording this on Wednesday, let's say Rodgers doesn't play. I mean, he's got a broken bone in his wrist. And they beat Mason Rudolph. People are like, beat Mason Rudolph. I don't give a shit. I could have beat Billy Rudolph. I mean, we're just playing who we're playing. Not our fault he broke his wrist. I'm a Bears fan who thinks Jordan Love is one of the most overrated players in the league. Not saying he's bad, but don't understand people who say he's a top quarterback. With that being said, I think the conversation around him and LaFleur isn't the right one. Their receivers have more drops than anyone in the league. Yet every time they lose a game, it's always LaFleur doesn't trust Jordan Love. But in my opinion, I think it's much more likely that he doesn't trust the wide receivers to catch the ball. Especially now with Kraft gone. Why does nobody ever look at this point? Well, if you're out there on an NFL field and it's 3rd and 8, like I got to call pass play. And if Josh Jacobs is injured, I don't have a choice. I have to call passes. So yeah, like they're dropping more balls than currently anyone else in the league, right? No different than, the Bears drop a bunch of balls. But eventually you got to call some pass plays. One, just the yardage the down and distance put you in a position where you don't have a choice. You're not going to call a run play and a tie game on 3rd and 9, right? So it's the NFL. You got to catch the ball. I think the frustration with LaFleur is more compounded from the last couple years than it is just this moment. Plus, at the end of the day, you got to win against teams when you're a big favorite at home, or the Browns, even if you're playing in Cleveland. You got to win that game. So, like, Matt LaFleur has to win those games. It just has to happen. If it doesn't, like, we got a problem, especially when our defense is elite. You're the offensive guy. So not just the quarterback, but the receivers. Like, this should all be your baby. It's on you to make that happen. Plus, you don't fire quarterbacks. Or, you're not going to fire Dobbs, right? I mean, Jaden Reed. You're not going to cut the rookie guy you just drafted in the first round from Texas. It's just the way the business works. Fair or not. Which, there's probably some truth to what you're saying. It's not totally fair. But it's just the reality of the business they're in. Been a Falcons fan my whole life, so I'm used to the disappointment. I didn't think that we were that far away, but you can't have an incompetent and inexperienced coaching staff with an immobile, basically rookie quarterback and expect to win. I believe in Penix, but another injury scares me. Let's say we are about 2 years away from playoff contention. If you were running the Falcons as a GM, what would your plan be to fix it? Well, let's just say everyone gets fired and a new GM comes in. I do think it's fair for that guy to go, I don't think we have a quarterback. Obviously, Cousins isn't going to be on this team next year. But I think Penix would more than scare that next guy. Because there would be a decent chance, even if that guy lies to Arthur Blank, that he didn't believe in Penix coming out of the draft. And then you would have a massive reservation after he's tore his ACL and won't be able to do anything all off season. Who knows if he'll be ready for week 1. So they have a lot of good players in a lot of different positions. But you got to figure out that position. And they have not figured it out since Matt Ryan fell off a cliff. And if you do not have that position, you don't really have a chance. So I just think that would be my number one goal, is how do we fix this thing? Can we bring in someone? Can we bring in a bridge quarterback? Could I trade for a quarterback? Like, would I entertain giving a 2nd or 3rd round pick for Mac Jones? Could I win 10 games next year with Mac Jones? Once upon a time, Belichick did it, and Mac Jones is better now. So, I mean, which is not a great option, but those type options you would have to talk about. Gardner Minshew. Now, this is what we're talking about. Because am I going to draft a guy really high? Well, I don't even have a 1st round pick. So I just think that it's tough. I mean, I don't know. I don't have an answer. It would just be quarterback. Because we have a lot of other pieces on the team. We just drafted multiple guys on the front. We have Drake London. We have Bijan Robinson. We have offensive linemen under contract. Even if I let Kyle Pitts walk. Skill guys are not our problem. AJ Terrell. Like, we have some defensive weapons. I believe Brian Flores would be a phenomenal fit with the Bengals. The tough culture would fit, as Joe is much tougher than Tua and Flores could fix that defense. What do you think? Would be hard for Flores. I clearly did not like Tua. Now, you could argue it didn't look great a couple years ago. I was like, God, Flores, you were way too harsh. It's kind of aged pretty well. The one thing I will say about Flores, because from a defensive coach perspective, he is an elite candidate. He's been a head coach where the defense was good. He's a defensive coordinator where he's one of the best in the league. With Belichick, with Kevin O'Connell, like, he's an elite X's and O's guy. And he clearly is a tough guy. You're either a tough guy or you're not a tough guy. He's a tough guy. The stories I heard out of Miami, even separate from Tua, the way he dealt with offensive coaches was pretty ugly. So maybe, and ideally, like any human being, you take a look back, you do some introspection, you look in the mirror. You have to, you can coach guys hard, but like your offensive staff, because you're the defensive guy, you're not calling the offense. You're very dependent on those guys and the offensive group. They're a little more delicate than defensive players. So my main question would be, because to me, Flores is a big time candidate, but he does have a major red flag. And that's like, can he deal with offensive people? Like, he's a coordinator, of course. Like, he's not the boss. But when he's been a boss, we have seen one time he resorted to what all the Belichick guys do. They just are giant, you know what? But like with defense, he knew what he was talking about. It worked. But the offensive guys, I'm talking about the coaches. The stories I've heard was like, whatever you've heard, it's even worse. And clearly, the Tua situation, which, listen, let's just say Tua's a scrub. You got to be careful with the quarterback position. So, are you going to treat Joe Burrow like it's Tom Brady 19 or 2009 like Belichick did? I don't know if that really works anymore. And even Tom eventually was like, I'm tired of this. So that's my question mark, which I don't even think Brian Flores could answer it. You would only know once you hired him how it went. But there's no disputing he's an elite defensive coordinator. Elite scheme guy. A tough guy. Can he deal with the offense? And I'm not saying like implements plays. I'm just saying like, can he deal with those guys? Offensive guys like aren't always screamers and yellers. It's much more of a cerebral operation. Defense is like, let's chop their head off and then shatter their legs. That's the thing. Like, you put Aaron Rodgers out there with the messed up left wrist. What do you think defensive players are going for? It's like, John, you can't say that's not allowed. No, that's how they talk. They're going for his wrist. This is not tiddlywinks here. So it's part of football, which works for Flores on defense. Offense, like, that's not really the way they think. Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. We talk a lot of football here on 3 and Out, but there's always something to bet on. The NBA, college hoops, hockey, sports are going full swing right now. When you sign up with Hard Rock Bet today, you could score $150 in bonus bets. You just have to place a $5 wager, and if it hits, you not only get your winnings, but you also get $150 in bonus bets. Hard Rock Sportsbook app is the only legal sportsbook whenever you're in Florida. And it's also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, Colorado, and coming soon from more states near you. Plus, Hard Rock Bet offers new promos every single day. So whenever you're listening, just open the app and check out what you've got on any given day of the week. Download the Hard Rock Bet app today and make your first deposit. If you were the GM of the Saints starting this season, what would be some moves you would make? I personally thought we should have traded away our older players like Kamara and Cam Jordan and Taysom Hill. It's a great question. I'd have to look at their roster better. I mean, those guys, Kamara's he's still under contract. Next year, you could trade him this offseason. I think right now, sitting here, after seeing Tyler Shuck a couple weeks ago, I think these next 2 weeks, just evaluating him. Do we got something here? Do we have enough where we just rock with this next year? Because we got Olave. We got some offensive linemen that aren't bad. Defensively, you got Brandon Staley as your defensive coordinator. That'd be the first thing I'd say. Is like, Kellen, I like you. Nussmeier's my guy. Doug, not his son, the quarterback coach / offensive coordinator. One thing I'd recommend, can we get rid of Brandon Staley? I know he threw you a bone when you were out of work, but can we just get rid of this guy? It's hard for me to come into work and look at this guy. But other than that, what do we need? We need some pass rushers. We need some DBs. I feel pretty good. Our offense has shown some signs. But, yeah, you trade some older players for sure. I also think, like, trading Alvin Kamara, it's not like you're getting a second-round pick. It sounds better. Like, let's trade some guys. For what? As my guy Ricky Water said. For who? For what? Been listening to 3 and Out. Love the pod. If you were asked to build an All-Middlekauff team for the last 25 years, much like the All-Madden team, who would be on it? To save some time, you can use one offensive line until, if you don't pick the whole thing, that would take some time to think about. I think some players jump to mind really quickly. Randy Moss, Aaron Donald, Trent Williams, Myles Garrett, like a LaDainian Tomlinson, Travis Kelce, but do I need a blocker? Can I get two? Kelce and Gronk, so if I want to block, but also like spread you out. Do I want a deep threat? Tyreek, I think you got to go with Brady, but what if I want a little more mobile quarterback? It depends how are we basing it on just like who are the most accomplished players? What would be the players I'd want? Uh, Best linebacker the last 25 years, probably Ray Lewis. You could go Urlacher, Kuechly. Ed Reed would be on the team. Revis, Sherman probably be my corners. I think most of the names kind of jump out pretty consistently of the top guys. Who are your running backs? Marshall Faulk and LaDainian Tomlinson. Who are yours? I appreciate your football insight. I was born and live in the East Bay, and 4 of my 5 kids play rugby. The fifth and youngest will play when he's 6. You talked about rugby's lack of popularity in America, and I wanted to offer some context. The governing body of rugby was formed in 1871. The body didn't allow players to be professionally until 1995. The strict adherence to amateurism greatly stunted the sport over the last 100 years. That and a schism within the sport about paying players greatly stunted the game's growth. America is an outlier as a former British colony to have not embraced the sport. But it's understandable as we've won our independence much earlier than the rest. I love the sport, and I wish it was more popular here. I think my main theme, piggybacking off what you said, is football is not popular anywhere close, right? In England, in Ireland, in obviously Australia or New Zealand, in the islands, where football is king here. So rugby, it's direct competition. Like you can like basketball and rugby if you live in Europe, right? Or Ireland or whatever, right? Where football, like, basically filled that void. So our physical sport, and most people that I knew that played rugby, right? If you went to Cal and played rugby and they were winning national championships, or BYU or whatever these schools, probably couldn't make the football team. So I think your first aspirations as a physical being in America would be like, well, I want to play football at. I'm speaking of the Northern California schools because that's who Cal or my friends at Cal Poly played, but Utah, Arizona. Well, if you were on the rugby team at Arizona, if you were the starting whatever for the Arizona rugby team, if you could be the starting middle linebacker for the football team, I think it's fair assumption that that individual would quit rugby and go on full scholarship and NIL, especially now, and play middle linebacker for the University of Arizona or the University of Utah or BYU or Stanford, right? I think we'd all agree with that. So the competition, like in Ireland, what else? You're going to play cricket, right? I mean, if you're a physical specimen, you're going to gravitate toward rugby. Where here, I just think you're going to gravitate toward football first. And I know a lot of people, like in high school, at least I could speak for Northern California, they play football in the fall and they play rugby in the spring. The Porta Potty Panthers haven't earned national attention, which is completely fair. Small market, unwatchable football, and they have given NFL fans no reason to care. But Bryce just set a franchise record in a game, and suddenly they're over 500, heading in to Monday Night Football. From your perspective, do they have a shot to win the NFC South, only being half a game back of Tampa? And do any league connections with anyone close to Canales? I actually have a buddy that works for the Panthers. I don't think the expectations early in the season were that high, but clearly you're 6-5. This is a massive Monday night game. If they were to beat the 49ers and be 7-5, the Buccaneers play the Rams. I mean, there's a very, very good chance the Buccaneers do not win this week. Kind of like them with the points. Think this is kind of a kitchen sink game. The 49ers defense is rolling out a lot of guys from the UFL and practice squads. Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, those guys are long gone. Their first round pick, torn ACL. So it's a very winnable game. And if you're 7-5, like you're not just you have a chance to win the division because you still play the Bucs twice. you get to 10, 11 wins and just minimum be a wild card. So I think the Panthers have a big, big opportunity, especially because you're playing the 49ers too. It'd be one thing if like, oh, they're playing the Saints and it's Monday night. Be a lot of people watching this thing. It's a massive moment for a team that, let's face it, most people don't watch. And like you said, rightfully so. They've earned that category of you don't matter. You can get at the Saints were in must watch for 15 years with Sean Payton and Drew Brees. He leaves, you don't need to watch him right now, unless you want to watch Tyler Shuck throw bombs. Can I tell you about my friends at IndaCloud? I've been a loyal gummy user now for several months, and they sent me some sleep gummies. I love those. But the ones that really hit are these peach soda. Uh, they got 20 milligrams per piece, and sometimes I just take half a little gummy, and it opens up my mind, helps me relax. And to be completely transparent, I've come up with some of my best takes sitting on the couch on one of these gummies. So whether you're trying to go to sleep, whether you're trying to relax and chill, or whether you're trying to open up your mind, if you're 21 or over, head to IndaCloud.co and use the code 3ANDOUT for 40% off your first order plus free shipping. It's IndaCloud's biggest sale of the year, and it's live all month long. No 12-hour panic buys here. That's IndaCloud.co, code the number 3 and out for 40% off free shipping, and the only Black Friday upgrade that comes with the actual belly laughs and not lines, baby. In a recent podcast, you said that most players need to have 3 years in college to be ready for the NFL, and most of them aren't at 22 years old. I'm a soccer player, and we've seen in the past how 18-year-olds can just become world class and start playing for world class teams. Do you think there will ever be a time that we see more young players will start coming out of college after maybe 1 or 2 years? It's a good question. I would say twofold. One, there's a rule. You have to be 3 years removed out of high school. So the NFL has a hard and fast rule that you can't just come one, Jeremiah Smith would have gone pro last year. So Clowney would, there's been a handful of guys that would have gone pro earlier than they did. I think the difference in soccer is there is a physical contact element to football that, not that soccer, it's not apples to apples. It's more like apples to hamburgers. Where there are guys 18, 19 years old in college who are as fast as anyone in the NFL. And if there was no contact, they could immediately fit right in. But I've been going to NFL practices for 15 years. The size of these human beings, you're getting a 30-year-old who has been in a strength and conditioning program since they were in college. They are just physically superior than a 19-year-old guy. That's why so many young players come into the NFL and just overwhelmed, because there is a physical strength component which just takes time to figure out. There is outliers who just come in, hit the ground running. Like Penei Sewell's physicality, ready to go. Right? Bijan Robinson. Saquon Barkley. There are outliers. But there are a lot of guys. You saw, look at Marvin Harrison Jr. Last year, it's like, God, this is not going well. What did he do this offseason? Put on like 12 pounds of muscle. Like, I need to be more physical. Now, we can argue whether he should have done that or shouldn't have done that. But like in his mind, it's like, I'm not going to last. So I just don't think it's really comparable. With all the discourse surrounding Shedeur Sanders, after his first team reps in an NFL game, I feel like I'm going crazy. People saying, well, he hasn't got any of the first team reps in practice. Is that not a normal type thing for a backup quarterback? What do you think about his first NFL performance? I think I told Coward this. Like, I have no take. Like, of course he looked terrible. He's playing the Ravens. He comes in. He hasn't got any reps. Now, I don't expect him to look great this upcoming week. But my expectations coming in the middle of the game, what did people think? But I also don't understand, like, Josina, is she on Deion's payroll? Like, look at this world class. It's just a throw. It's the NFL. It's not that serious. What are we talking about? But you get no reps as a backup quarterback. None. I mean, zero. especially if the starting quarterback is also a rookie. So to come in that game against the Ravens, he had zero chance. None. I mean, so my expectations were zero. And that's what he didn't exceed them. He just equaled them. He looked terrible. Of course he did. Most rookies, they were drafted in the 5th or 6th round. They get thrown in a divisional game in the middle of the season with a team like the Ravens, whose back was against the wall, is playing like shit. They started licking their lips because unlike Dylan Gabriel, they knew that he would move around a little bit. So you blitz him, you get him running. He's not that great of an athlete. He's not going to run away from anyone. One thing if Shedeur's going to have success, he's got to get rid of the ball fast. The way that he played in college, holding it on, and he made a bunch of plays because he was playing in the Big 12. Now, the Raiders, he might be able, but Max is going to come after you. And the Browns' offensive line is terrible. If he holds on to the ball, Max will have 5 sacks. Got to get rid of the football. It's the only way you can excel in the NFL unless you are an elite athlete. Caleb can hold on to the ball. He's fast. Shedeur is not. I'm a complete delusional Baker Mayfield fan. So much so that I think he could, at his best, win an MVP. Me too. I put money on him to win the MVP, and it doesn't look like he's going to. However, I think he's at a significant crossroads. He's up for a new contract and could now get significantly more money. I love the guy. But I think he has his limitations and needs a strong cast around him. I believe a massive contract for Baker could cause his career to start regressing. I don't hate any human who cashes in on their value, but I do think for his legacy, a team-friendly deal would help him remain a top-end quarterback. Do you agree or disagree? Let's bring up Baker Mayfield's contract. And I would say this. Most guys, the overwhelming majority of players, this includes Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Aaron Rodgers, need good teammates. Aaron Rodgers was thrown to Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams in the peak of his career. Peyton Manning was thrown to Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, and handing the ball to Edgerrin James. So Tom Brady played with Gronk, Randy Moss, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker. You do not excel without good teammates. This is not golf. You need help. Whether you're Aaron Rodgers or whether you are J.J. McCarthy, right? But obviously it helps to have better players. And when they're fully healthy, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and obviously Ibuka are really good players. Well, these guys are all banged up now. So it becomes difficult. Baker Mayfield is not a free agent till 2026. To me, if I'm Jason Light, I'd probably play it out. Not because I want to move on, but I'm in no rush. And because I'm not offering him $60 million. So Baker Mayfield might just want to play it out. Baker Mayfield's under contract next year he will make $40 million. Like, I don't think they're in a huge rush to renegotiate right now. Plus, we'll see how the second half of this year plays out. This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. An underage sale is prohibited. If you're as competitive as I am, you always are looking for something to help you stay dialed in. And for me, that thing is Zone Pouches. You won't catch me without. I actually have a big package coming from my friends at Zone with some of my favorite flavors. Excited to share those. So, not to mention 20 pouches per can versus 15 the other guys provide. Choose Zone and dominate the day. Use the promo code number 3 and out 20 on NicoKick.com for 20% off at checkout. Is tanking just a fan theory? A lot of Saints fans and analysts on YouTube argue that we shouldn't win too many games so we can secure a higher draft pick. But I don't think any player or coach in their right mind would deliberately lose a game for draft position. At least not in New Orleans. In fact, we've seen Tennessee that even having the number 1 overall pick doesn't turn around a program overnight. It might be a stretch, but let's say the Saints finish 9-8. Should fans really be mad about the outcome? Well, you're not going to finish 9-8, so you don't have to worry about that. But no one in football tanks. Maybe the last week, but everyone tries to win. Stephen Ross offered Brian Flores $100,000 a game, and he told him to take his money and shove it up his ass. This is not basketball or baseball. It's honestly the reason the NFL's king. In basketball, a third of the league doesn't try to win all season. Not like the last month, like all season, they're not trying to win. We just had the Chauncey Billups scandal. Like he's telling people, like, yeah, we're tanking right now. It's not how the NFL works. Partly because there's not as much guaranteed money. The majority of players have no guaranteed money and can be cut at any moment. So you have to try. And two, this part of baseball is you get to play every day, right? Even in basketball, you get to play whatever, 3 times a week. So that's another game. In football, you get 1 game a week. And depending on what position you play, like if you're a rotational defensive lineman, you only get 20 snaps. You spend all week rehabbing, training, lifting, meetings, practice, cold tubs, saunas, just doing shit that isn't that fun day after day after day, just for the game. Ray Lewis hit the nail on the head, man. You pay me Monday through Saturday. Games are free. Football, I don't care what level of football you've ever played. You can play a pickup game, let alone high school football, college football. The games are the only fun part. Most of the other football, unless you're just a nut job like Peyton Manning, is kind of tedious and hard. It's a grind. Where the games, you kind of just get to let loose and play. So it's like these players are trying to win. You can't really tank a game. I think football's very lucky that way. They have 2 things really going for them. One, it's an incredible television product. It's once a week. Every game matters. Even when they don't matter, they still kind of matter. In the NFL, it's a very hotly contested league. You can have anyone beat anybody. So, like, you get weekly great games. And 2, you don't really have to worry about, like, no one's throwing games. Like, all the stuff that goes on in these other sports is just not happening in the NFL. Okay, a couple more questions. Question, could Denver or Indy, if Lamar, Josh, or Mahomes play them in the playoffs on the road, do you think either team has a chance against those clearly superior quarterbacks? I would say the Chiefs are kind of in shambles right now. Denver and Indy would host those 3 teams. So I would say this about Denver and Indy. Both of them fall under the categories. They are no shoo-ins to just win all their playoff games. If you told me like Josh Allen was the quarterback of Denver, I'd be like, they're unstoppable. No chance they could lose. Can you lose a playoff game with Bo Nix? 1,000,000%. I mean, we've seen him have these awful games. And when you're playing Denver, it's like, when you're playing the Giants, you're not out of it. You're playing Lamar Jackson. If you're down 10 points, you're probably not coming back if Bo Nix having a bad game. I hope all is well. This question is for the mailbag. I would like to understand why the media, and sometimes you as well, refuse to talk about certain teams like the Carolina Panthers. If their record is the past few years, if their record in the past few years, many teams have been worse and get talked about a lot more. Jets, Giants, Browns. And few times the Panthers are mentioned, the information can be flat out wrong. Like, for example, calling Bryce Young an injury-prone player when he's missed 2 games since college. I guess he got benched. Every time I look at the Panthers, he's on the ground. I mean, it doesn't look like he's going to get up. Maybe he does more. This isn't that complicated. No different than many of you, whatever your industry is, we're just in the business of talking about the big stories. And the Panthers are just not a big story. If they were, they would be discussed more. And when I say not a big story, a story that people care about. Like, I'm not in the television business, so I don't talk about the Cowboys every single day. But there's a reason that they talk about the Cowboys, the Lakers, and the Yankees. Because it works. If it didn't, they wouldn't. This entire thing is a numbers game. I never understand people in the media that I remember when I used to work in the Bay Area. If you talked about the A's consistently, you would go out of business. But some people couldn't stop talking about the A's because I don't really know why. Like we're not in the like I'm not emotional about any of this stuff, which is sad. I used to love sports, and I still do. Like I still enjoy watching the games, but I look about like all my angles of what I'm going to talk about. 99% is just how am I going to talk about something that's interesting with something that people care about. Where the Panthers, who have been historically terrible over the last however many years, firing coaches left and right, you're finally 6-5. You expect to get treated like the Eagles or Sean McVay or the Packers. That's not how this thing works. Now, when you had Cam Newton and you had some interesting stuff going on, people talked about you more. But look at the Saints. They had Drew Brees and Sean Payton, and they were a national story. Well, those two guys disappear. They no longer are. There are certain, just like there are certain industries that are recession proof. Not many, but there are some. There are some teams that are proof. The Jets and the Giants, it's New York City. They have more people that live in that area than any other city in America. So do the math. They have more fans just based on in a region than any other area in America. Why do people talk a lot about the Packers and the Steelers? They have massive fan bases. There's a reason people don't talk about the Arizona Cardinals often. They don't have as many fans as the 49ers, as the Packers, as the Philadelphia Eagles. This is all a numbers game. Now, like as a podcaster, I can talk about whatever I want. So when things are interesting to me, I talk about them. I've talked about the Panthers before with Tepper, some of their trades. But like just because you're 6-5 for the first time in a decade doesn't mean we're going to get on our knees and give you a reach around. So just pump the brakes. You got to win some games when you're a smaller market and you've been really bad. You don't just jump to the front of the line. It's not how it works. I don't know what else to tell you. When I had 2 NFL teams when I worked in the Bay Area and I did radio. You would have been crazy to not talk 49ers 75% of the time. Why? Because even in that region, they outnumbered Raider fans. I don't know what the exact number is, but it was a lot to a little. And then we're talking the NFL. We're talking the Raiders, who had a historic brand. So why do we talk about the Giants more than the A's? Because it's all a numbers game. What is wrong with the Raiders? Why do coaches who have proven they can't succeed at certain areas get so many chances? Josh as a head coach, Chip Kelly as a coordinator. Also, why does being the poorest owner matter? Is it less for the assistant or other owners pay more? We have been rebuilding for so many years. I just think being the poorest owner, they're not anymore because Vegas has generated them a lot of money. It matters because you can give large signing bonuses. So like when Khalil Mack wanted to trade, the Raiders could not offer the same contract that the Bears offered them. Why? Because the Bears had more money. Now, in 2025, in theory, the Raiders should have a lot more money. Mike Mayock and John Gruden have talked about this. We could not structure our contracts the same as the Rams or the Cowboys or the Eagles or whoever. Now, if that change, so you're going after a free agent and you both are offering them 3-year contracts. Well, I'm going to structure one to give you $20 million up front. And the Raiders do more of a year-by-year situation with maybe $5 million. I'm just using some hypothetical. But that's where it matters. So it really used to impact them. I mean, I remember Greg Papa telling me a story. The reason Jamarcus Russell and some of the guys in the 2000s used to hold out when they were drafted high, because Al didn't have the money to give them their signing bonus. And back then, rookies used to make a ton of money. He had to wait for the media deals to distribute the revenue sharing. That's obviously changed. That they have more money now than they did back then. But it's a hindrance. And it has been on the Raiders historically. Now, the reason they're losing right now, that's why they got Brady and the money guys involved. They needed more cash. They got it now. Well, did they hire the wrong coach? The Chip Kelly thing is, I mean, he's been horrendous. Now, should they be the number 1 offense in the league? Of course not. Should they be as bad as they've been? No chance. They have to be. The Cowboys defense is awful. And you watch the Raiders, you're like, what is going on? So I think the Raiders are at the point now where it's like you got to hire the right coaches. You got to find a quarterback. Um, you just got to get better players. So it's on Spy Tech and the scouting staff now to improve that roster because it's pretty terrible.